again. On our Health and Science Focus today, we are discussing the mental and cognitive effects of aging. We're looking at things like what happens to the brain as we start to get older. We're looking at things like Alzheimer's. We're looking at things like Parkinson's disease, memory loss. Why do older people fall so much? We were chatting to neurologist Stacy Rossouw, and we have got her back on the line for us. Stacy, hi there once again. Yes, we were talking about what exactly happens to the brain. What is the aging process of the brain? And if we were to call it deterioration of the brain.
Yeah. Thanks, Yuvika. So essentially, as we get older, the structure of the brain changes as well as the chemistry of the brain. Commonly we refer to that as your neurotransmitters, these messages or these hormones that travel up and down our neural network that facilitates cognitive function, mobility, and even our psychological function. So as we get older, the brain undergoes structural changes and we lose, some of these particles. And that then would then lead to Alzheimer's dementia, for instance, and Parkinson's disease, for instance. And for different people, it starts at a different age. And again, the rate of progression is also dependent on what type of disorder is affecting the brain, and then also each individual's DNA that impacts that progression as well.
Is it a given, Stacy, that, if you are getting older, this is naturally going to happen to you? Or do some people still stay as sharp as a tack until their last days?
Yes, some people do. And that has got a lot to do with what have you done throughout your years? What are you doing to keep, those neural networks active? Are you living a healthy lifestyle? Or which part of that is physical activity? Are you engaging in activities, crossword puzzles, reading, Sudoku, activities that keep on stimulating the brain? And part of that is also sleep hygiene. Are you sleeping well? Are you using or abusing toxins, substance abuse, and nutrition? So a lot of that impacts the rate at which you age and also how sharp you remain.
Well, you mentioned Sudoku,
in old age.
And you remind me so much of my mum because she's religious with hers, and I think that's what I'm going to get her for Christmas is an entire Sudoku puzzle book as well, which is a good gift, I suppose, for somebody who is getting on as well. So what are the signs and symptoms then, Stacy, that the brain is slowing down, that it might be time to come and see someone like you?
Yeah. I think very often the commonest symptom is loss of memory. Slow cognitive ability and not that sharp anymore and forgetting little things. And often that is the first symptom that definitely brings patients to my office. Mood changes, personality changes, often sometimes problems with communicating, difficulty completing, what seem to be mundane day-to-day tasks and which you wouldn't have given a second thought before, all of a sudden becomes more complex and more difficult. And definitely then you start seeing problems with reasoning. Very often these constellation of symptoms are the first onset of cognitive impairment going into a dementia. Obviously, if a patient presents with weakness on the one side of the body as the classical signs for a stroke, that also brings patients to our office. And then specifically with Parkinson's disease, the general slowing down of movement, walking becomes more difficult, stiff legs, stiff arms, and then the classic sign when hands start to shake, the classical tremor that we talk of with Parkinson's disease.
All right, Dr. Stacy Rossouw, thank you so much, and we are going to go into more detail now in most of those things that Dr. Rossouw has mentioned. They're joining us now is Coetzer. She's a subspecialist geriatrician from Wits University's Donald Gordon Medical Center. Here we're looking at these most common later life illnesses that older people suffer from and how the mind and the body and the brain is changing at this time. Suzanne, thanks so much for your time. And let's specifically talk about things like memory loss and Alzheimer's. And let's go into a little more detail about that. Memory loss comes with aging? It is an accepted part of aging, but does it necessarily mean or lead to Alzheimer's disease?
Not necessarily. So, thank you, Rebecca. So when you get memory problems, sometimes it is just slowing down of the brain, and it can be normal part of aging. But once it starts impacting on your daily abilities of doing your things that you used to do before, even if it's some simple things like putting on the alarm, or and then more complicated things like being at work and things, but once that starts impacting on your ability to do your activities, then we know that there's a problem and it's becoming more of an illness than just normal aging. And that then can be Alzheimer's disease or some of the other dementias as well.
All right, I think a bit of an explainer of what exactly Alzheimer's disease is and what's happening to a person and their brain and their mind at that time.
Okay, so Alzheimer's disease is a type of dementia, so you get a lot of different kinds of dementias, but it's the most common type of dementia. It is associated with aging, and as you age, there's certain proteins and changes in the brain, that deposits that take place in the brain that then, in certain parts of the brain, especially the front and side parts of the brain, that then impacts on your memory specifically. So with Alzheimer's disease, you're unable to form new memories, and where those people are, if you speak to them, you notice that they've got short-term memory loss, although often their long-term memory, they can still remember the years when they were children and young adults quite well, but they can't remember what they did last week or who they met last week or what the most recent book or TV program that they watched entailed.
So does Alzheimer's necessarily lead to dementia then? Because often we see that the two are interlinked, to somebody who's had Alzheimer's progresses onto dementia.
Yes, yes. So as I said, Alzheimer's is a kind of a dementia. You can sometimes get a precursor of Alzheimer's that is called mild cognitive impairment. And that doesn't always lead to Alzheimer's or other types of dementia. It's just a warning sign that we need to monitor you and try and prevent, do all the healthy things, as the other doctor just mentioned, to also prevent further deterioration in the brain. Try and prevent Alzheimer's from getting in.
Is there any way, Doc, to actually can you prevent Alzheimer's? Dr. Rossouw spoke about living a healthy lifestyle, taking everything you're supposed to take. We know that omegas and things like that, all those fishy oils and all are supposed to be good for our brain. How much of that can you do, though? And if it's going to happen, is it genetic in some cases as well? What could be the causes?
Yes, it is definitely genetic in some cases, and unfortunately, if you get the wrong roll of the dice, you just don't have an option about that. But you can still slow down the progression in some cases. But the best prevention for Alzheimer's is a healthy lifestyle from a young adult onwards, and especially as you age. Physical exercise is very important. Mental exercise, good education helps. There's certain risk factors that helps to prevent the serious parts of aging.
What are the things that we should absolutely not be doing if we don't want to end up with something like Alzheimer's?
Well, preferably you shouldn't be smoking. Avoid high alcohol intake, so just sticking to 1 or 2 units a day is the best. Avoiding certain medications. There are certain medications that can increase your risk for Alzheimer's or memory loss. And then what you should be doing is the physical exercise and mental exercise.
So at what stage, and like you say, there are different stages, Alzheimer's is a type of dementia. At what stage do you know that, look, it's not time for the family, we can't take care of you anymore, that somebody actually needs to go into a facility, which is a very difficult decision to make, but there does come a point where danger to themselves and others is a consideration?
Yes. So when we see patients, we do certain mental tests, and there's certain scores that then tell us, okay, this patient is at risk of not being able to look after themselves. But it also depends a lot on the history that you get from a family member or person that is living with the patient. And when you examine a patient, you look at, are they able to take care of themselves? You look at small things like, are they cutting their toenails? Are they in good hygienic status? Because those things are often neglected, and the patient themselves don't know that they're neglecting. They're not intentionally neglecting these things. It just happens. Or if they're losing weight, those are all warning signs that more care is necessary in this patient.
So we don't want to panic everybody who might be watching us today, Doc. I mean, you know, some people, like you say, could just be suffering from normal memory loss. I suffer from memory loss. It comes from years of working early shifts and not sleeping properly, getting up before 4 o'clock for years and years and years. So what would be the signs that this is just normal memory loss and that this is Alzheimer's or dementia?
That's a difficult thing, but as I said, if you were unable to now perform your job, suddenly your co-workers realize, okay, no, you're not arriving in time, you're becoming all disheveled, or you can't read the words anymore, or then, but obviously it doesn't necessarily mean memory loss, there's other causes as well, but it needs to be looked at. And also if you, so those are the warning signs. So if you suddenly forget a word, but it comes to you 10 minutes later or later that evening, sometimes it's just normal memory loss. But if it happens more frequently and it's affecting other people, start noticing it more. That's more of a warning sign.
All right, so me forgetting which child I'm talking to or my children's names is not a bad thing at this point. It happens. Okay. All right. In terms of cures, we're always looking for cures, you know, Alzheimer's, dementia. What's out there? We're always hearing, yes, in a couple of years' time, we're expecting to see something for Alzheimer's. What's happening out there, Doc?
Oh, unfortunately, it's not good news at the moment. All the studies that were being done in South Africa, the trials on doing studies on medication to try and prevent Alzheimer's or even then cure it has been all unsuccessful. So there are no miracle cures available at present. They are still busy developing new studies and going on, but they found that they can take away those proteins that I've just mentioned, and you can clear away all of those, but it doesn't cure the memory loss. So they suspect that the physiology of the Alzheimer's is still more complicated than what we still understand about it at the moment. So as of this moment, there's no cures in the pipeline even, unfortunately, and many more studies are necessary.
Is there an average age, Doc? Is there an average age where this type of thing sets in?
Yes, so it becomes more common as you age. So say you are 70 or older, it's about 1 in 5 or 1 in 10 people might get it. But once you get 90 years and older, 1 in 2 people will have some form of significant memory problems. So it is more common with age. Once you do get some younger patients with Alzheimer's and memory loss, but those are the more hereditary genetic types. So they will often give you a clear family history of their mother and their father also having Alzheimer's specifically.
All right. Well, while I still have you here, I want to talk about falling. And I don't know if there is a link between, you know, things like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's and things, and why it is that older people tend to fall more.
Yeah, so definitely there's a link. So first, just why older people tend to fall more. There's a lot of changes that also happen as in the brain, the rest of the body also ages. So our muscles and joints, they deteriorate and your muscles get quite a lot weaker as you age. And that can then lead to falls. But then also certain illnesses that we've spoken about, Parkinson's and strokes and things. Memory problems also cause more falls because you need your brain to fall. Walking is quite a complicated process. So you use your brain to multitask when you're walking. You have to think, okay, I've got to lift this leg up now, I've got to lift the other leg up at the same time. Your arms have got to move. And then when there's an object in the way, your brain has to focus on avoiding that object. And as if you get a memory problem, your brain can't interpret those signals quickly enough. And then obviously get vision problems, hearing problems, with balance problems as well. Medication influences your risk of falling. So there's a lot of risk factors falling that just increases as we age as well.
So much for them being the easier years. They actually sound like they're much more difficult as you get older. Thanks very much, Dr. Susan Coetzer. There. Still to come, we'll delve more into Parkinson's and just what are the links there with what we've just been talking. What happens? How can you prepare? We'll also be looking at what care facilities are out there and how they care for people, older people who are inflicted with these aging diseases and the psychology of aging as well. That's all on the way.